So hi guys, it's Carlo from Top Gear, and honestly today's a little bit of an emotional time. I don't know, the mothership is calling because for those of you who don't know, I used to work with Lexus for about 5 years, back in 2009. And they just opened this new test facility. And Lexus Philippines has invited us, Top Gear Philippines, here in the Shimoyama Technical Center in Nagoya, Japan, where we get to drive not this, other cars. And these include some interesting ones like the LM, and we're lucky enough to try the GX, as well as the RZ with the little fighter yoke. So come with us and we'll give you a quick tour of what the facility is about, the track that's attached to the facility, and the people behind it, here on this special on the Shimoyama test facility. So hi guys, we're here in the Shimoyama Technical Center of Toyota. So Toyota's secret test drive facility here in Nagoya. And funny enough, we're trying out the Lexus LM, which is the minivan. Now, what's interesting about the track is the track has a lot of undulations, a lot of different surfaces. It goes up, it goes down, your tire loses contact with the road a little bit. But the nice thing there is we are being guided by Chief Takumis, and they are teaching us especially how to test drive a car. So they explained to us that, you know, the way you get in a car, the way you start out, the way you touch all the features of the car, it has to be a little bit more systematic, so that the way you drive one car will show off the differences, or at least similarities between the cars. No? So here in the LM, even if it's a minivan, it's supposed to drive quite nicely. It's supposed to drive like the other Lexus vehicles in the lineup. And so far, other than a little bit of body roll, because it is a big car, it does feel more planted than I thought a minivan would. So we're going to get into other cars, but a little bit about the test track. This is the country road number 3, and the country road is something akin to the European roads that we're used to in Europe. A lot of undulations, a little bit of rough patches here and there, a lot of blind corners. So this track is designed to showcase and test the cars in their natural environment, or at least the harshest environment. In fact, when they were talking about the cars, the Nurburgring came up a lot, and those who know Lexus and Toyota know that Lexus used to develop all their cars through Morizo and Naruse-san in the Nurburgring. So the LFA was developed there, as long also the other cars like the Supras were raced there, especially the Nurburgring 24-hour race. And what makes it interesting is that a lot of little things about the Nurburgring come out here. So you have blind corners, you have off-camber corners, you have tightening radius corners like this one. And because of that, the cars that are coming out of this test facility, they can do a lot of Genji, Genbutsu, or also Genba, which is go look, go see, and see how the cars actually participate and how the cars work in their natural environment. So it's a bit of an interesting thing. So this is the first car we're testing, it's the LM. It is a minivan, it's the 4-seater actually, so actually the best seats actually go there behind us. But we have the other cars also on test. We're the first ones to be able to test the GX, because in the Philippines we don't have any demo units, they're completely sold out. And we also have the RZ with the yoke, which is interesting for me because I've never driven a steer-by-wire system. And we also have the NX and the UX. Now what's also interesting is that they do say that between model year changes, normally they don't really make a big deal out of it, because you're just making a slight update, maybe the software, maybe the dynamics a little bit. But with Lexus, the way they're doing it is every model year is a big change, more or less. So between the last gen UX and the current year model UX, they say that they raised the structure a little bit, front tunnel, rear tunnel, and the rear, and made it drive a lot better, and something that we'll see, or at least we'll have a chance to see while we're driving on this test track. So let's hop on to the next car on the list. So hi guys, it's Carlo from Top Gear, and today we're back here, and we just happen to have access to all the Lexus lineup, including this. This is the GX 550, and I think we're one of the lucky ones who are able to drive it, because if any of you are in line for the GX, I'm so sorry, but that line is pretty long and it's completely sold out. So what makes the GX 550 interesting is they're having us try this one, which is a body-on-frame SUV. We tried the LM a while ago, which is the minivan, and we also have an EV and a bunch of other SUVs. No? So as you can see, the road is quite bumpy on purpose because we're trying to test how the car will react in all these situations. So what can we say about the GX? Well, the GX is a twin-turbo V6 gasoline engine, and so far it's quite good. It's well planted, it drives well. You cannot actually, well, you can tell a little bit that it's body on frame, but it does drive quite well for its size and for what it's going up against. For a car that looks like an off-roader and has all the equipment of an off-roader. On the road, it's quite manageable and it drives quite planted, no? I would say this is one of the better body-on-frame SUVs we've tried. The only ones we've compared it to, we haven't driven the Prado, it's out of stock. We haven't driven this in the Philippines, out of stock. But the LX 570, the older one, we've driven that. And as for a V8 big SUV based on the Land Cruiser, this one does feel a little bit better, I would say. Definitely compared to the LC 200, this one feels a lot more planted. I think the KDSS, which is the dynamic suspension system in this car, has been tuned quite well, even for a mountain road like this, with some weird corners like this. But that's it, that's the GX 550. It's a very short drive with the GX, but we were lucky enough that we're one of the first media to drive here in Shimoyama, and also to drive this, the GX 550, at least from the Philippines. Actually, we're quite lucky because the other countries, they don't actually get the GX. We were asking around, and I think it's because we're left-hand drive. Like, this is where the steering wheel is supposed to be in my mind. But because of that, we get stock of GX and other countries don't. So I think we're quite lucky in that sense. So if you're lucky enough to get on the wait list for a GX 550, I think it's worth the wait, but we'd have to bug Jade a little bit more for a test drive. So we can get a proper test with, you know, at least all the time in the car with the cargo space capacity. And definitely, if we get a test unit, Jade, we're gonna take it out camping and off-roading. And that's the GX 550. I like it. So here we are in the RZ steer-by-wire. And what's interesting about it, you can see here, or you can't see it, is we don't have the top of the steering wheel because this is the yoke, the steering yoke style controller, no? So what makes it interesting is it's not, Lexus isn't technically the first to do a steer-by-wire. That dubious honor goes to Nissan, I think, with their steer-by-wire system. But Lexus is developing this one, especially for the rest of the range, but they're starting off here with the battery electric RZ. And while I thought it would be weird because at slow speed, you only need like a half turn to make a complete U-turn, it's quite intuitive because it didn't really take much for me to adjust from driving in the parking lot to driving here on the Shimoyama test circuit. And it's a bit of a weird thing. Yes, I'm losing a little bit of where I can hold the wheel or I can rest my hand, but in terms of driving it, it's quite intuitive. The car goes where I want it to go, it points where I want it to point. Even in a certain corner here, we're coming up to it now, this corner is a decreasing radius corner. It gets tighter as the corner comes, but even then I can follow the lanes of where I want the car to go without really much input or much thought. So for me, that's a good sign of a system that has been developed quite well for driving. And I guess if you have Shimoyama as your backyard, then development would be a little bit more fun and interesting. But yes, so what are my thoughts? Is this really the future, the way we're going with cars? I think it's one of the more interesting options because the steering wheel has been a steering wheel for years now, decades even. So we've not been able to innovate in that. Tesla has tried the same thing, and Tesla was first to market for a mass market electric vehicle, but I've heard that people aren't very happy with Tesla's implementation. They feel that it takes a little bit more getting used to and a little bit of weirder steering ratios at lower speed. At least with our experience from this prototype from Lexus, the yoke does seem quite well balanced and the steering ratio seems very predictable. Basically, you could throw this at my mom and I don't think she would have so much of a problem transitioning to this from a full steering wheel. In fact, she might enjoy the view a little bit more. So that's our first look at the steer-by-wire system of Lexus. This one will come first to the RZ, but there's no date yet. They're still in constant development and trying to see if there's a way to make it better in the spirit of Kaizen or continuous improvement.